a lot of the transportation tech is obviously ancient as. I saw this trying to get a ticket to get to this event, and like no one could use the ticket machine. Had to go to cash in hand to buy a ticket to get on the train. So complete disaster. Anyway, folks, we're live, everybody. Sorry for a little bit of a hiccup. We're just trying to fiddle about with the tech and all this. I am blaming CrowdStrike. As I'm sure a lot of you are sort of aware by now, but we've had a global meltdown, blue screen of death happening to anybody using a Microsoft tech. I'm on a MacBook right now, so hopefully we're going to be okay. But I just want to check with you that you're okay. So I wanted to make sure that everyone can hear me and see Adam as well. So can you see and hear, see and hear Adam and I on screen? Let me know in the chat if you can. I'm pretty certain that we're not going to be anywhere else on this because I have no faith in modern technology. No, we do seem to be on LinkedIn, which is a miracle because LinkedIn is, of course, a Microsoft product. But we're live on LinkedIn, it looks like. If you can hear me and see me there, give me a comment on the LinkedIn video there. Let me know whether the audio and video is okay. I think you're on Rob Walker's LinkedIn as well. I believe Willow are also broadcasting this from their corporate account. And yeah, maybe Michael is, maybe you as well. Okay, clicks, all good. Thank you very much, everybody. Ready to roll. Folks, we've got a very exciting show for you today because we are at the point of, I think, hesitancy is the right word when it comes to artificial intelligence and its implementation into talent acquisition. I think the reason why is because we are we're not sure how to move forward in a way that's ethical and kind of compliant in terms of what we anticipate the compliance situation to be. So it's going to be a really exciting conversation today because we're going to bring on Willow, who've basically done a bunch of really good research and have come up with what I think is a very practical framework which can get us on to the idea phase to actually the implementation phase. So if you've been fiddling around with AI but you haven't operationalized it, and one of the things that's causing you to hesitate is because you're unsure as to how to play it ethically, then this is the show for you. Anyway, let's roll forward. We're here with Adam Gordon, of course. Adam, good to see you, mate. I hope everything's well. I know you just talked about half your family is stuck in the same country I am. I'm in Germany right now, so thank God I booked my flight sort of on Monday rather than today, because I would be super annoyed if it was the third flight in a row that was cancelled on me. I'd be giving up on flying if that was the case. But yeah, hopefully they'll get on safe. Any updates on when? Like, have they got a rebook flight or what?
Tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow at 5 p.m. So like 30 hours later than they were hoping to get back. So yeah, flight's leaving at 5 tomorrow. They only went for a concert. They only went to see Taylor Swift. They've been there since Wednesday.
Taylor Swift causing havoc wherever she goes. This is the second country where Taylor Swift's visited where there's been flight issues. Last month, a couple of weeks ago, I was in the Netherlands, and I had to spend an extra 48 hours in Amsterdam as a result of Taylor Swift as well. Anyway, let's get on with the show. I'm sure they're going to be all right. Adam, did you read the newsletter last week? And if so, what was interesting, man?
I did, and I've the last few times I've done this, I've made a habit of looking at the poll, and I'm going to do that again. I think it was really interesting in that most people said that the second half of the year hiring is going to be about the same as they did in the first half of the year, 63%. Marginally more people said they'll be hiring more. I think it was 22% said they'll be hiring more, and 15% said they'll be hiring less. But almost nobody said they're going to be hiring a lot more. I've got a theory in all of this, and it's not a very pleasant one, and that is that companies are, let me just think of the best way to put this. Companies are every major corporation I know is going through a talent acquisition transformation. They're not just doing a TA transformation, though, of course. They're doing a transformation across their entire organization. This is being driven by the CEO and the CFO and the Chief Information Officer. And most companies are either in a hiring freeze or let's move the deck chairs around in the Titanic phase, or they are trying to establish in every single area how they can become more effective because of developments in technology over the last 18 months. So I think that we are in unprecedented corporate change.
That is a rock solid theory, Adam. I actually find myself agreeing with every word you said, Adam, which may have been, quite a profound moment.
First time in 8 years or something.
Indeed, because I think that's exactly what the case is. Like companies aren't charging gun ho and hiring, even if they do have the funding, because they're looking at it and thinking, you know what, all this tech is coming in, and it does seem to have substantive potential for productivity. So what is the right size of a department? We don't actually know anymore. And how do we implement technology in such a way that makes every worker more efficient? What does that do to the numbers of people we actually need in there? So what I'm hearing is I'm in Berlin right now in a huge conference, and I've been having a chat with the recruiters that are in this event, and we're getting a very similar sort of review. Had a chat with a Hungarian recruiter yesterday who talked about one of their biggest international sort of oil and gas firms. And he was saying, look, they've definitely got the money. They've got loads of sort of cash in bank, but their hiring is not sort of strategic in the sense, we're going to build this new department. It's all just replacement and attrition. Because they're hedging their bets. They're thinking, you know what, 6 months down the line, we do not know whether our customer service department is going to look the same. So we're not going to charge forward with that. And I think that broadly is representative of what the poll represented. But what do you think, folks? Has Adam got it right? I mean, what do you think of his prediction? Do you think, not prediction, but his prognosis of the situation? Is it accurate or not? Let us know in the comments. Okay, cool.
And alongside that, I just want to say that, like, this whole concept, as I say, almost every major corporate organization I know is doing a talent acquisition transformation right now. Now, a talent acquisition transformation suggests there is a desired end state, right? And the transformation is going to produce a vision that somebody has right now. Who on earth has got a vision of what talent acquisition should look like this time next year? I don't know anybody that can accurately predict that, because if you are completing a talent acquisition transformation in 2024 and you get it finished by December based on a vision which was set in January, it's going to be absolutely out of date. So the whole concept of continuous transformation or continuous improvement, I think, would be a much better way to do things than a wholesale transformation, because you could be putting technologies in place and processes in place which are absolutely like non-competitive by Christmas, given the speed of innovation.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And you know what, Adam, you've never been, you never had more endorsement. Looking at the comments in the thread there, look, I don't think that we don't have a single dissenting view. But I think we're all getting the same vibe, right? It's basically, look, pop in a few replacements, maybe a slow growth, incremental growth on areas where the company is absolutely sure is core, evergreen job, for instance. But we're not like charging forward and crazy growth. And you're right, like, what does the future look like? We're not sure. So we're kind of, there's a lot of hesitation on making those big changes. Interesting times for us. I think the message for us in recruiting is that we've got to lean into those trends, and we've got to radically transform ourselves. We can't just sit away from the company and just wait for the dust to settle, so to say. We've got to really dive deep into this transformation process and almost be an example for the rest of the organization, even if that means really having some changes for what our own visions were, in terms of what a TA team looks like. So yeah, we've got to be brave enough to make those decisions for us, individuals and in a team context. Yes, interesting times. Cool. Let's give us one more, mate. Give us a couple more, actually.
Yeah. Okay. So the article, I don't know what Brookings is. Is it a university or something? But anyway, it's about like should we provide benefits to gig workers? I read this. My instinct was no. Why would we do that? I read it. There's a lot of intellectual stuff in there. Gig workers should be getting paid more cash, because in lieu of a permanent job that comes with other benefits. If they want to have their cake and eat it, then like I I don't understand the benefits to the employer. So my after reading it, I thought it was interesting issue, but if I'm an employer, I'm thinking, why would I do that?
So your CEOing is coming across sort of loud and clear. Your owner manager, your owner manager persona is coming across loud and clear. Zero sympathy for the staff. I get
People
it.
have got choices. They've got choices. You work in a job that's a salaried job that comes with benefits, or you don't. You take your chances in the open market. You get paid better cash, and that's the benefit of doing that.
I think a lot of people would have sympathy for you in the sense that of a certain type of gig worker. So in other words, what I call the privileged gig worker, the likes that have made the choice, they've got the option, they could work in a permanent job if so offered, they choose not to do so. They're usually highly skilled individuals that have had a decade plus working as an employee, and are using that knowledge to parlay into a more of a fractional working setup. However, there are a lot of people that are in precarious gig working. So in other words, they don't have maybe never worked permanent job. These are delivery sort of riders, the Uber drivers, etc. And what governments have been doing is trying to give them more benefits, but I think they make the mistake of just shoveling in considering them as the same category of person as an employee, thinking an employee is the best thing that they can ever be in. Whereas in fact, we need something else, which is what this post is talking about, the concept of a portable sort of set of benefits. So it moves with you rather than it's locked to a job, which obviously means that you have to become an employee in order to get access to those benefits. But yeah, it's an interesting one to have a look at, folks. So it's a bit techie, not techie, a bit wonky, so to say. But if you do care about future work and how it plays out with people who are doing slightly different than full-time employment, that is something you need to be aware of. Go on.
I just don't see any benefit to the employer.
Well, there isn't, mate. I mean, we're forcing the employer. That's the thing. I mean, if you give benefits to employers would give zero benefits to any staff. I mean, the concept of benefits emerged because it was legislated for. So this is a lot of people might rightly say this is state intervention to the rights of a business to do what they wish, and yeah, that's what it is. Okay. So yeah, okay. Give us one more, mate.
Right. So talking of intervention. Talking of intervention and talking of CEOing, Toby somebody, the CEO of Shopify.
Yeah, Toby Luca.
Right. Randomly drops into Slack channels, reviews what's being discussed, and then shuts things down. This is hilarious. I mean,
every CEO and every founder that read that thought it was funny as, but every HR person sort of read that was absolutely outraged and think, what a tyrant. It's like, this is the worst type of management ever.
Look, things change rapidly. It goes back to what I said about a TA transformation. Why are you doing a TA transformation rather than incremental benefits when your transformation is going to be out of date? Like things get spun up, and then 3 months later it's a bad idea because actually the world has moved past that already, and so I think it's the right thing to do for a CEO to be able to get down into the weeds on things sometimes and then make an instant decision on it, because there could be 20 people working on something which that individual knows is not a priority anymore because something has just landed on their desk to change it. Get them off of that, get them onto something else. Corporates need to be agile like that, and they'll thrive if they are. So it's the right approach. You can't have every manager in the business doing that.
No, it's one guy that does that. It's the CEO. It's a top person that does it, and it is kind of an Elon Musk style of operating. You can see it's channeling the sort of randomness, the sort of the bolt from the heavens style of management, and it's terrifying. I mean, if you're running a project and you care about it, that sense of some external intervention stepping in and just stopping 6 months worth of work could be very difficult. So it's probably not great cultural practice. But it does maybe tune people's minds to think, is this good for the business, rather than constantly, coming off alignment from core goals. And that's basically what Toby Look is trying to do. I mean, again, I've had people who've worked for this company email me afterwards and say, yeah, he's just a dick. And that's a possibility as well. It could just be.
Is he the founder?
I think he is, yeah. He's definitely the CEO of it.
Well,
and it could just be a tyrant. I mean, let's not forgive sort of people who are just like abusive. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. But at the same time, he's the person that has most interest in the business. He wants it to succeed. And I guess his approach to making it succeed is to prune. Like, he comes in and I think he sees it very much as, right, I've got to come in and just stop a bunch of projects. That's there's too many projects. I want to stop them.
Just so you know, I mean, there's absolutely this guy's not living in the same world that the rest of us are, right? The guy's worth $6 billion. He is a co-founder of Shopify. He's worth $6 billion. He's 43 years old. And so, I think he can do what he likes pretty much.
Yeah.
However, again, is this a public company? Because that's a different thing again. And often companies do end up outgrowing the founders. They have to take a different direction at some point.
I think, yeah, once you become public and you're owned by a large number of shareholders, obviously you don't want this to happen. But there's probably a reason why CEOs want to keep this type of controls, because it gives them that authority to make these interventions of this type. Melissa seems to know loads about Shopify, so we'll have to do a Shopify culture. Company culture sort of show at some point. Anyway, we're cracking through. We need to bring our guests on to talk about how to ethically implement AI. Before we get in and get Andy, get Woody and Ewan on, what's your perspective on this, Adam? I mean, you're obviously building a product right now. It's got a lot of AI in it. It is about making recruiters more optimal. How would you see how have you dealt with the ethical nature of it? Is that being factored in terms of how you build in Poetry, or are you leaving it to the users to define a policy, and you're just saying, look, here's a tool, you've got to use this as best you see fit?
Yeah. So several aspects of this. I mean, the first is that we are doing everything we can to remove busy work. So if it's we're not thinking about like AI is going to take people's jobs or whatever. We're not thinking about it like that. We're thinking about it in the context of, if it's going to save a recruiter time, we are doing it. That's the first thing. And that's what if I don't do it, somebody else will. So I'm not going to feel like, obviously the next step of that is talent acquisition teams or recruitment teams, RPO teams are going to be changing the shape and the tasks that people focus on as a result of the efficiencies that come from that. Right. So I'm not going to feel guilty about that, because if I don't do it, somebody else will. The second thing is, in terms of the actual use of the AI itself, we've done a very large amount of research and work into things like the impact on diversity and inclusion. And I'm not saying we've built anything like its own algorithm like Textio or whatever, but we have put we put about 15% of our entire focus into that. And then the third thing is, we've deliberately made it pick and mix, so that if companies want to switch off generative AI, they can. One insurance company has done that. Also, if you want to switch off specific solutions, you can. So we've got a solution for battle cards where it's all about generating information from candidate interviews, so that if you know that Sarah Brown is a dick and people don't want to work for Sarah Brown at that competitor organization, then you can store that and people can come back to it in the future. One particular bank told me they definitely can't do that. It's anti-competitive. It would get people literally arrested and put in jail for that. Fine, switch it off. You don't use it. So they're the issues that are relevant to me, but I can't wait to find out more from the research.
No, this is great. It's great that you've put some thought into it, and I like the fact you're giving people ownership. So it's not just here's the toolkit, it does this, and this, but you could actually configure it or drop things on and off according to
passing the buck. You mean
that's what you got to do. You know,
giving ownership.
You sort it out. It's actually really important, because there are certain legal cases happening right now, which is trying to put the responsibility onto the product maker. And that for me seems to be a bit strange, because it's like, it's like giving a person that makes knives responsible for every terrible thing that's done with a knife. It's like, you know what I mean? At some point, it's a tool, and it's the usage of that tool could potentially be abused in any case. Anyway, we've been rabbiting on. Let's bring on some more intelligent people, and they can give us a bit more chit chat. So we're going to bring on Ewan Cameron and Andrew Wood. Let me see if I can find these guys.
Ewan's on twice, I think.
Is he? God damn, Ewan.
Yeah, because there was 2 likes on something earlier, and they were both Ewan Cameron.
Good Lord.
Unless there's 2 Ewan Camerons on here.
Don't need 2 Ewan Camerons at any point. You know what I mean?
Well, there was 2 Ewan Camerons when I first met you, and you worked for a company where there was another Ewan Cameron who I also knew.
Are there 2 Ewan Camerons, Ewan? Have you not eliminated any other Ewan Camerons to make sure that's only you that is the person?
I'm trying my best. I worked with a Ewan Cameron for 7 years. That was a nightmare.
You work with a person with exactly the same name,
like
in the same team.
Same department, same team, sat next to each other. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's horrendous, mate.
And I know both of them by complete coincidence.
Yeah.
Terrible. Well, hello to the other Ewan Cameron, mate. I hope he's doing very well in his career. And
likewise.
Woody, we've got Woody here as well. Hey, Woody, good to see you, man.
Hey.
Listen, you guys have been on the show before, and actually, last time you were on the show was doing something similar, because you're doing so much great work outside of sort of Willow, providing this value to the organization, to the community. It's fantastic stuff. But why don't you take a moment to introduce who you are, what it is you do, what is Willow, who should care about it, and then why did you get into this sort of research topic on ethical AI? Go on, Ewan. You want to
Was
give
that
it
a point? Were you pointing at me?
Or do you want to do that?
Felt like you were pointing at me.
Alphabetical.
This must be the other Ewan Cameron, because he's not talking. So there we go. But hi everyone. So I'm Woody. This is Ewan. We're the co-founders of Willow. Willow is a asynchronous interview platform. And why you should care about us, I guess, was a question from Hung. We're helping organizations in 130 different countries automate a lot of the heavy lifting in your kind of pre-screening process. So if you're finding yourself losing time to very laborious pre-screening tasks, then Willow is a good place to have a conversation. Why do we care about AI? Because everybody else cares about it, is a simple answer to that question, and we're very interested in it. Personally, I'm interested in it. I'm actually interested to ask the question, at what point are recruitment teams going to start assessing somebody's ability to utilize AI rather than trying to assess people and deter them from using it? When do we make the flip to actually, what's the assessment tool that we use to figure out whether somebody can write great prompts and figure out whether somebody can utilize AI in a day-to-day role? So just throwing that out there straight off the bat. It looks like you wanted to say something.
I was going to say, have you actually done that for your own? So, I mean, I'm not sure what you're doing with hiring, but are you actually testing for this? Because a lot of the sort of roles that a young tech startup business are looking to recruit, I would imagine would want people that are AI enabled. Yeah. If I was recruiting for a salesperson today, I'd want someone who is actually very fluent with these tools.
Yeah, 100%. And in the ebook, we talk about making it clear to candidates what your AI kind of ethos is as a business, because a lot of the problem is actually a candidate goes onto an interview platform or a pre-screening platform, and they sit there and they go, well, am I allowed to use my calculator, i.e. ChatGPT, or am I not allowed to use it? If you actually just tell them and give them guidance, 9 times out of 10, they're actually going to abide by that and assume that, one way or another, you can figure it out. And from our perspective, in hiring for sales, that's what I hire for in our team. In every sort of video introduction that I do, I talk about the fact that they can utilize AI, they can use it as a guide, but absolutely don't use it as the answer, because you will see through that. And actually, you see some candidates that just literally verbatim would read something off of an AI script, and then equally you see people that utilize it to give guidance and give much better answers. And that is what the future of sales is going to be about. Guiding your content, using it to get hyper-personalization, to then use your personality and your skills to change that into effective sales work, in my opinion. So yeah, good question.
No, very, very interesting. And we have actually seen one of the more common ways in which candidates are using AI, or at least it's been sort of promoted as one of the common ways in which candidates are using AI, is kind of using a tool that that listens to a question and then is able to teleprompt the response out. I forget what the tooling is, but TikTok's loads of these. People have caught them on camera doing it. And I was just thinking, you know what, that's ubiquitous. But I'd be interested to know whether you've detected anything of that type, because obviously Willow are doing async videos, so you are recording video interviews. Have you seen any kind of like odd behavior that would cause you to think, you know what, probably these people are using some sort of tool to teleprompt the answers back, and you know that's got to be a factor when people are making decisions as to whether you bring them forward?
Absolutely, we are seeing that as well. Handled in different ways. So some employers see it because it's quite obvious when people are reading, obviously, on screen, so they see it straight away, and that's fine. They're obviously detecting that, and they decide obviously whether they want to do anything about that or whether that's just accepted. Other employers are putting into their descriptions, please do or please don't use AI tools, which goes back to what we mentioned earlier. If you guide the candidate and tell them yes or no, then it's much easier for the candidate. That you remove all that ambiguity. But for the folks that are using AI and reading it through like apps like you mentioned on TikTok, it's pretty obvious. So candidates, they're typically the employers are seeing that straight away and detecting that themselves.
Yeah, very, very interesting stuff. Okay, let's talk about the work that you lot have been doing. Tell us how that emerged as an idea. What was the thinking behind this, and a little bit about the method that you went through to pull together the insight.
Sure. So we decided at the start of this year that we were going to, first of all, understand, and this goes back to what you mentioned earlier, Adam, the industry is obviously changing, and it's changing at a rapid pace, but it's not just obviously TA that's changing, it's departments across every organization that are changing, and a lot of them are changing because of AI. So we decided at the start of this year, let's find out actually what AI means first to organizations. What does AI look like in the future? And then how do you implement and embrace AI in the best way possible? And we did that in a really broad kind of approach. So we decided, rather than just look at it from a narrow sort of viewpoint of how does it impact Willow, we decided to speak to experts across the industry and across the kind of broader industry. So we spoke to you, Hung. We got some really insightful stuff from you. We spoke to Arctic Shores, our partners over there. We spoke to Accenture in Canada, Toyota in the UK, and MimiBot in California, and just gathered a bunch of different expert insights. And that was really the start of our kind of research piece, I suppose, was, what does AI mean? What does it look like to you in the future? And then how do you implement it in the most logical, sensible way based on what you know today as well? And that goes back to what you mentioned earlier, that it's changing so quickly that we don't really know. So all we can do is our best attempt at what we know already. So that was the start. And then over the course of the past 6 months, this ebook's been downloaded thousands of times, which is great. And people are actually starting to put these things in practice, but we're also putting it in practice at Willow. So we're taking the findings of that ebook research, which not only have we been able to give to everyone else, but we're also using internally to guide how we implement AI in the platform and in the tool itself. And that'll be coming out in the next month. So August is our first major release of AI in the Willow platform. And pleased to say it's on track and it's looking good. But I'm also interested to see how people respond to it, because we've always had this position. I think it's a position that most people on this call will agree with, is that humans should always be making the decision on hiring humans, and implementing AI into Willow feels quite contradictory to what we're trying to achieve. So we've tried to implement AI in the right way, and hopefully a way that adds value to the humans making human decisions.
Yeah, very good. I've just shared. I think I've shared it in the newsletter before with your permission, guys. So it was not gated, wasn't it? It was like you're happy for everyone to see.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So I've just shared a Dropbox links in there. If you've got the raw PDF, whoever has, just share that. Just get access to it, folks, and read it. I mean, you don't have to agree with it, but there's a lot of people out there are just simply lacking in any form of guidance. So, here's a starting point. If you have no start, then this is great. Go and check it out. This is work that other people have done. And so you don't have to repeat that effort. What's the most fundamental learning that you two as business owners learned through that exercise about AI? Was there any one thing that you thought, okay, now I kind of understand you've got to get this bit right before you start going forward? Any thoughts on that, guys?
Key takeaway for me was, I guess, so we found three principles. So that was really the best way of summarizing it, was actually 3 points. But if I jump into the point that stood out to us most, it was probably the fact that, and we mentioned it a few times now, that it's all about being open to experimenting. And that goes back to like previous transformations. I went through like the marketing transformation from like traditional marketing to digital marketing. And you don't really know until you're in the digital marketing world what the right direction was. You have to be really open to just changing and trying things all the time. That was the key principle that stood out to me, was even if you read all 23 pages of this guide, which I recommend you do at the weekend because it's a great read, because there's actually practical exercises in it too. So you can come in on Monday morning and actually fill out, practical exercises in the pages, which is great, and actually have a step forward. But at the same time, all of that stuff should just be taken as like ideas and suggestions, because in 6 months' time, it's probably going to be out of date. Things will have changed. The world will have changed. The organization you're in will have changed. So just being open-minded, I think, is key. And that's quite hard for, when I speak to people in the TA industry and I say the whole world's changing, they accept that the whole world's changing. It's quite a scary thought, and it's quite hard to be open-minded when you're, nervous and scared about what the future looks like. But I think that was the key takeaway is, if you are open-minded, it's going to be way easier. It will come and go, it'll ebb and flow. Things will be hard, things will be easy, but we'll get to a good point in the future. It won't get worse, but it will take time, and it will be experimental. It's principle number 3 in our book, is be open to experiment.
Yeah. I think you don't have to boil the ocean. Like if you look at our previous report, a high majority of people thought that AI was going to be part of the future, but then a high majority of people also didn't know what that future really looked like and how to implement any tech whatsoever. Being open to change isn't about revolutionizing the way that you work using AI. It's about, hey, what's this laborious thing that I'm doing right now? I wonder if there's a tool out there that can help me do that, and whether it would work for me. And then how does that connect to the business? It doesn't have to be, I'm going to revolutionize the entire TA org today. It's about finding one thing that you can iterate and improve over time, and implement quickly and easily, rather than, the world's totally changing, I'm going to lose my job. Actually, let's iterate towards, you being the expert in AI in your TA function. Become the recruitment operations individual of the future, as opposed to being the TA partner of today. So that's the key takeaway as well, is just really thinking like, I don't have to boil the ocean. What's the one thing that I can do today that's going to start me on the journey of change, basically?
Yeah, I think sometimes it feels like such an overwhelming topic, and because the AI on the tech innovation side innovates so quickly, it never stands still enough for you to ever think, oh, now is the time for me to get a good grasp of what this looks like. Because guess what? It's just moving so fast that everything you do is going to be out of date. So you've got to have basically strong ideas weakly held. In other words, don't be axiomatic with how you're going to do this. Understand you're in an experimental journey, and you're going to just, always be iterating, always be really having constant dialogue with the technical evolution with it and evolving with it as best you can. And Woody, I think you're absolutely spot on. Isolate one component of your recruitment process that you think is applicable to artificial intelligence, and just give it a shot there. You don't have to, do the whole thing. It might be whether it's job design, whether it's looking at how you're doing interview scheduling, looking at one component and knock that down, use a tool, use a technique that works, and then that will give you the confidence to then go forward to explore different parts as well.
I think just to add to that, Hung, I think the other part is through the methods that are kind of outlined in this book that much smarter people than me came up with. you might actually reach the bottom of that kind of deep dive into this issue that you've identified, and it might not be AI that needs to be the answer. And I think people are so obsessed with like having an AI person that's right, go out there and find all the AI, and you find a solution that isn't AI, and you're like, well, it's not AI, so it's useless to me. It's not the tool of the future. It's like, that's okay. Just use that tool and it will remove a laborious part of your process. And guess what? That's going to give you more time to potentially explore other AI tools in the future.
Where I think that's probably coming from is because the CFO is saying to people, like department leaders, right, everybody, I need you to all identify all the AI. And like some people have taken that absolutely literally.
Yeah.
And it's very likely that they've also attached numbers to that, because I need you all to identify all the AI you can use, because everybody's headcount's going down by 20% in the next 9 months, right? And so they're being really specific about it. And talent acquisition leaders and other leaders are like, shit, I need AI immediately, because they said AI specifically. They didn't say anything else. They didn't say use automation tools or work out better processes. They said, we are going to be, creating efficiencies in our organization because of AI. So that's where they're like, completely focused on that subject.
I agree. And it totally makes sense. Like a top table discussion, I'm sure, much like any board, our board talks about AI all the time. Not all the time, but it's a regular agenda item. So that's going to cascade down for sure. But let me tell you this: if I went to a CFO and said, "Hey, look, I didn't find AI. What I found was a tool, because it's not AI, it's 50% cheaper, but it still overcomes the same problem." He or she's going to still turn around and go, "Yep, amazing. Let's put it in." Like you've got to break free from the shackles of thinking that's the only way to reduce or improve efficiency.
I want to ask about just another question around like what we were talking about earlier. Sorry to go back a few steps, but what we were talking about earlier around testing people's proficiency for use of, say, generative AI, for example, and helping them do their job. For a sales job, I can see that you absolutely want to, as Bob said in the comments, you want to test their resourcefulness, but at the same time, people have to be able to think on their feet in a sales job, and so you can't entirely rely on it. Are there other jobs where actually they can't entirely rely on it, or they and they don't really need to use? They can maybe curate all the stuff that they are, generating. I mean, that there's lots of jobs coming in my mind here. Jobs in finance, for example, jobs in marketing. Maybe there's quite a lot of jobs where they don't need to be like one-to-one present so often. Any comments on that?
Yeah, well, we can go right to the extreme, because I was interviewing last month, 2 months ago now, for a data analyst. And that's obviously a perfect use case, but not every data analyst is proficient in AI yet. And it was quite clear to me which data analysts I was interviewing were using AI and which weren't, because the ones that were using AI were much quicker, and the work that came across to me was of a higher quality because they had the extra time to do the polishing and to tidy it up and present it properly. Whereas the folks that weren't proficient in AI or didn't even use it at all were miles behind. They were too slow to get the data across to me. They didn't have a chance to make it look good. They didn't have a chance to present it and summarize it properly. That's a really extreme example, but it's quite interesting when you see it firsthand. The really stark difference between people that have obviously learned how to use it and are using it and people that haven't. But obviously it filters all the way through. Marketing is a great example too, Adam, where the folks that use AI, and I love it when people can use AI in marketing, even if it's just as a starting point, or it's an opportunity to proofread your work or create 3 other variations or versions. Because that's one of the key things in marketing, which is always overlooked, is like, okay, you nail the ad copy, but you don't know whether that's the right one. You need to create another 4 ad copies, but there's only one of you and you don't have 4 brains. So use AI to make the other 4 ad copies. One might be terrible, one might be amazing. You don't know until you try them. And the people that use AI in marketing are going to win on that every day as well, because the copy will be sufficiently different It won't just be Adam's version 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is what happens a lot today.
Absolutely. I mean, my marketing agency uses like I don't know which one they use, but they use some sort of generative AI to come up with first draft solutions on things, and they might come up with 20 different ideas, and they go, "Hang on, that one in the middle could be really developed," and then they might then continue to use the generative AI to turn it into something that is actually really great. And that's the point where you need the human expertise and the human input to know how that's going to land with an audience and things like that. But yeah, the start of the 10 on all of that is undisputable.
No, it's going to be really interesting to see which sort of jobs are going to be more obviously where AI is going to have the biggest impact. I think you mentioned marketing seems to me one of the more clear ones where very clearly AI proficiency is going to have a big difference in performance on the candidate. It's going to be some other jobs where it has a lesser impact. But we're soon going to sort of wash that out and start understanding actually these jobs must have AI capability because of the significant benefits a skilled person will have in that area. Question for us in recruiting folks, is recruitment kind of categorized amongst that group of jobs where AI has a bigger impact compared to other jobs out there? I think it probably does, folks, so we've got to get into it. All right, let's talk about the ethics of this, because one of the things that's I think is causing companies to hesitate is the ethical side. And one of the points that were made in your report was that actually most companies don't seem to have got to the point of any kind of guidance on usage yet. And that obviously is going to cause people to do one or two things. Number one, either experiment on the quiet, without reporting up and basically doing it on a freelance rogue type basis. And on the other, for fear of being caught out, literally not doing anything and waiting for a big signal to say, right, we're ready to go, folks. What's your recommendation to this? Is there an easy way to write a guidance, or did anybody come up with a way to, produce internal communications that makes sense for a particular company to get them activated on AI implementation?
Yeah, I guess in our ebook, one of the findings was, first of all, what are the risks of AI? And I think that's a very great place to start. Risks of AI, just in general: bias, inaccuracies, hallucinations. Doesn't get talked about an awful lot, but hallucinations, big risk in AI. And it's difficult for you to actually detect those hallucinations unless you know the topic that it's generating content on, for example. And then privacy is the other one too. Privacy, again, is a topic that's not getting talked about enough, I don't think. Like, where is your data going when you give it to a tool? Nobody really knows. And how can it be used? Those are like big risks. So bias, hallucinations, privacy, all big risks to cover. I think the findings that we kind of came out with, again, goes back to what we spoke about earlier, was do your gap analysis first. So look at each stage of the hiring process, if we're talking about hiring here. So more specifically, each stage of the hiring process, what's the gap? So where are the gaps that we're trying to plug? And then go back to what Woody said earlier, is it an AI tool that we really need to plug this gap? Or is it a training thing that we need to do? Is it another type of piece of software? Or is it like a process thing? What is it that needs to plug the gap? If it is an AI thing that we need to plug the gap with, we decide, actually, all the other ideas are terrible. We just need to plug it with an AI tool because that's the best solution. Then we go back to the risks and we go, okay, so are hallucinations going to cause us problems if we use AI for writing our job descriptions? And you go, yes, no. And if it is, then how do we mitigate the risk? Or is privacy going to be a big one? If we send all of our job descriptions, because we're like a nuclear power plant, to OpenAI, are we risking those job descriptions, getting out into the public domain and causing us a risk? If yes, then how do we mitigate that risk? So I guess the best way of handling it, because it's quite broad, we did speak to folks and they were like, it's too broad to say AI can be ethically used by mitigating the risks of A, B, and C. You kind of have to look at it in a case-by-case basis, as in like a use case by use case basis. Because you might not care about privacy, for example, if you're using AI and generating marketing copy. Who gives a shit if it's read by everyone in the world afterwards? Nobody cares. But it's kind of use case basis. I think that's really important. And we tried to cover that off in the book as much as possible. So there's a section, page 21, risks and mitigation strategies. And we've tried to cover that off in a most sort of logical, human-friendly format as possible for everyone to try and follow.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm just looking at the report now, and it might be worth just after we do this little segment, just screen sharing some of this and giving people a visual view as to what we're talking about. But before we do that, folks, we always kind of want to make sure that Brain Food Live is a conversation starting show, not a conversation stopping one. And of course, we do need to come off air in about 15 minutes or so. And it would be a terrible shame if that meant that we couldn't continue this conversation offline. Very important part of this show is that you make sure that you connect with everyone else who's involved in this conversation. So why don't you take a moment, grab your LinkedIn URL and stick it in the comment thread if you're watching this on Crowdcast, and then connect with everyone who's done the same. If you're watching this on any of the LinkedIns, grab your LinkedIn URL, stick it in the comment thread there, and then make sure you connect with everyone else who's doing the same as well. End sort of outcome for everybody should be 20, 30, 40 new connections of people that are interested in AI, ethical AI into TA. Now, I put it to you, those are the right people to have an offline conversation with on how you're getting about doing this stuff. So take a moment, folks, and share your connections. I would also love to join you, by the way, but I can't accept connections anymore, but you can follow my profile if you want. It might actually be a useful thing to do, by the way, because all of the LinkedIn lives go through my profile as well, which means that you can also go and replay them if you missed the show and stuff like that. Okay, cool. Let's talk about the sort of getting AI implemented into TA. There was a big section of the book where you talked about this. I wonder whether you could flash this up on screen, Woody or Ewan, because it might be just worthwhile just talking through some of the key points. I particularly like the gap analysis that you're doing. And as you say, it's almost like a worksheet style. It reminded me of like some of those sort of coloring books I used to do at Sunday school. And I don't mean to diminish that, but it kind of made me feel good about it because it felt right. It is actually a tool. I can fill this in and see where we're at. Talk us through this, guys. What are you thinking about this particular piece?
Yeah, so it would be ironic if it wasn't easy for us to fill in. It's called Hiring Humans, this book. And what we decided to do was actually create, like you said, school work style takeouts or handouts that you can fill in. So this first one, all about gap analysis. So this one you could literally do, Monday, Tuesday with your teams, recruitment process gap analysis, looking at all of the things that you currently do in your team, assess each of those stages, and then ask yourself a really killer question here. So we've called it a driving question. And in this attraction stage, for example, where do our ideal candidates live? And if so, how do we reach those people in the most authentic way possible? And then all we do is list here the current things that we do. So it might be, whatever, post an ad on LinkedIn. And then you are over here, the gap areas that you want to improve. So it might be, for example, improve the quality of our ads on LinkedIn, or, post more ads on LinkedIn every week. And then that allows you to, as we mentioned earlier, figure out then what stage or what gap do we want to plug with AI, and also what's the most impactful point that we want to plug with AI. So this, if you get to the end of this exercise, it looks like a bit of a monster, but it's not going to take that long to complete once you get into it, particularly if you do it as a group. But once you get to the end of it, you've got a really great sheet which you can refer back to, and it doesn't need to, as Woody said, be AI that plugs every gap. You might then decide, actually, our offer stage sucks at the moment. How do we improve that and streamline our offers? It might be, we spend some money and time on a new HRIS or something to onboard people through. So that's a great starting point. And I think that's a really fun exercise for anyone that's, unsure, and also wants to present back to their team a well thought out approach to tackling this.
Yeah. I'd just jump in there and just say the idea is to identify the gaps, and then, as we said earlier, just pick one. Don't pick loads. Like, it's easy to get overwhelmed by the number of gaps that you suddenly go, wow, we've got a lot of gaps. Try and get to a top 5, then a top 1, and then, go away and tinker.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and every department will be different.
I love that, by the way. It's a big sheet, but go through it, and that helps you identify the one gap you're going to go for. And it also gives you, a list of other stuff that you could do once you successfully execute on it. So yeah, very, very useful tool. Sorry, Ewan, keep going.
I was going to say, obviously, every department and every organization is different as well. So when we were pulling that together, you had really interesting conflicting views from each of our experts because each expert represented a different organization in a different country as well, and they all have different objectives and goals. So those gap analysis and then which one do they laser in on actually varied significantly. So once you have done that, you really need to then think, well, what does our organization and what does our department stand for, and what do we really want to do here? For example, if your organization is all about candidate experience, then you'll have different, that gap analysis that you choose will be different from the folks that are all about, getting people through the door quickly or ramping and scaling up really quickly. So yeah, it's been really interesting to pull that together again with the experts that we spoke to. So next step is, once you've done all that, what does the future look like? This is probably the most interesting question for anyone to ask as a leader. What does the future look like for our department? What does it look like for our team? What does it look like for me as an individual? So we had a few really fun examples here which can get you started. So we just put in, for example, the future looks like for our quality of hire. What does the quality of hire look like? Or what does our process look like? But writing that down, verbalizing it, makes it a lot easier to actually digest and do something about. And then finally, we get into, if your gap is going to be plugged by AI, which again, doesn't need to be, but if it is going to be plugged by AI, what are the steps that you take? And it goes back to what we mentioned earlier around trying to reduce some of those risks and mitigate those risks. So first and foremost, build your policies. So if it is, for example, sending all of my nuclear power plant job descriptions to OpenAI, what's the policy in place to make sure that we're not, putting anything at risk? And then further down here, what data are we going to withhold from those? So it might be, like, for example, where the emergency stop button is, wherever, I don't know. But you might want to hold back a certain amount of data. So you put in place your data rails or guardrails, whatever you want to call it. And that's basically things that you don't want to reveal or that you do want to reveal, or that OpenAI or AI in general isn't allowed to influence. So for example, perhaps you don't want AI influencing the salaries that you're going to be paying people, because that's something that you decide internally. That's not up for OpenAI to decide. So putting in place those data rails is going to be key.
I love that term, data rails, Ewan. Where did you? Is that actually a canonical term in the space, or did you guys come up with it, or what?
We use it in the industry. So in our SaaS industry, we use it as a US phrase. Data guardrails. We just shortened it to rails in here, but data guardrails. You define the data guardrails early on, and it makes it much easier for engineers, for departments, teams. Everyone is on the same page. This is data that can go outside. This can be data that's only internal. This data can be manipulated from externals, or it can't be.
Yeah, fantastic.
I think what's really great about the transformation that TA is going through at the moment, especially when it comes to things like AI policies and that kind of stuff, we've always talked about how to get TA to the top table discussions. And actually, if you identify a gap that you could, improve efficiency by 25% or more, but then you also need to talk about your AI policies and what the company ethos and culture is around that, taking that to your boss, and getting to the top table is actually going to be a lot easier. You're going to be sculpting the strategy of how you're bringing the future workforce into the business. So again, it kind of comes back to, this plan is all about helping individuals become more recruitment operations professionals, not just, I'm not saying people aren't at the moment, by the way. Please, I hope I haven't just insulted 196 people. But it's absolutely about, how do we iterate to the future, and taking that to the top table is going to be super easy.
No, really good point. I think this gives you, it feels like if I fill this in, I'll have more confidence having that internal conversation. It would be an impressive thing to review. And it I'm trying to put this idea together that if we're able to do transformation within TA, it kind of sets an example and maybe even establishes a capability for us to help other departments to do likewise. The C-level, for instance, have definitely bought into the idea that AI-enabled businesses is what we want. There's no question if you're a business owner, that's what you want. You don't want a disabled AI. You don't want a company that can't use artificial intelligence. Of course not. And so you're looking for leaders within your business that's going to be able to take this on. I think it could well be TA, simply because we've got. It seems that we've got some bandwidth to try and do this. So yeah, we've got an opportunity for us here. Okay, cool. We're coming to the end of this chat, but I wonder whether you could accelerate some last minute takeaways for us. People,
definitely.
They're going to read this document, folks. If you haven't seen it. It's been shared on the chat stream, and it's been also shared in Brainfood as well. It is in the Brainfood Larder, because that's where I picked it out. So you can search for it there. Just put Willow Ethical AI or something. You'll pick it up there. But yeah, give us the recommends, Ewan and Woody.
Okay. Key takeaway and learning for all of us is the goal is not to have AI, but to have AI deliver value in the effective places. I think that's probably the key takeaway for everyone here is, download this, read it cover to cover if you want, and just remember that one thing, that you don't need to implement AI. It's not the objective here. It's, if there is a gap, how do you plug that gap? And if it's AI, here's how. That's probably the key takeaway. And then the other thing I would just say is, thank you to all the kind of experts here. You can actually click on all of these faces and connect with these folks on LinkedIn and message them if you want to find out anything else, or ask them any questions as well. They're all open to answering questions and talking more about this topic. It's a very topical topic to all of them, very close to their hearts, because each of these individuals is either implementing AI in their organizations, or they're experts in the space like Hung, and they're all hot on the topic. So please click on those faces. Maybe not Hung, but the other people.
I've been misidentified as an expert here. It's crazy.
I use the word listen.
You complimented him on his own podcast. That's shock horror.
Dear. All right.
Expert.
That's it. Expert with doubt quotes, definitely required when it comes to honey. Right. That's brilliant work, guys. Thanks for sharing that, and thanks for doing the work. I do want to give credit to you for putting out these reports. Super useful. I think because you're in industry, this really is very helpful for us. We've seen other companies, consultancies produce reports like this. McKinsey produce reports like this, but it's obviously a massive document that's like mega general, and you can't really get to grips with it because it's not specifically related to us. So I think mega useful for us. So thank you very much for doing it. What is down the pipeline for you? You as a business in 2024? AI impacting your product journey in any way? How is it impacting your business as a as an organization? You want to end with a few comments on that, Ewan and Woody?
Absolutely. So big half year. H2 is big for us in terms of AI, and it's all about humans and AI interacting well together. So the tools that we provide our customers are all going to be about enhancing the decisions that they make. So giving them the tools to make better, fairer, faster decisions. So having all those data points at your fingertips. We're not saying hire Adam because of X, Y, and Z. We're just saying these are attributes that Adam has. These are credentials that Adam has, and then you can compare them with Woody, and you can see them all on the same page. And that's giving you the tools, the superpower tools that you need to make better, fairer, and faster decisions without loading decisions, from AI onto you, because that's not where we want to get to. I don't believe that's the world we want to get to, where AI is making the decisions and calling the shots on people. People are the most valuable asset to your business. You can't just give that away to AI.
Yeah, that's fantastic stuff. Okay, Woody and Ewan, thank you so much for your time and effort. Also, thanks for coming on to the show. Well, fantastic to have you as always. Hopefully, I'm going to get up and see you guys at some point. I saw you at Wreckfest, by the way, last week. I saw the stand, but I wasn't able to get by and say hello.
You just went, oh, hi, guys.
Yeah, it was a little bit like that. I was like waving and then carried away by the torrents. But yeah, great. Hopefully, I'll get to see you soon. And keep up the brilliant work.
Hung, can
Thanks
I
for
just
having
make
us.
one more plug?
Go
So one of what you kind of didn't mention was we also the whole sort of ethos of our content is now to have really practical content. So we've got things like if you want to go CV free, there's a very similar worksheet that you can actually work through with your team. So if anybody's looking for content for Monday mornings, team meeting and skill-based hiring, CV-free recruitment, implementing AI, just head over and have a look at the website for a few more bits of content that are hopefully helpful.
Please do. The website is willow.video, isn't it?
Correct. That's the one.
Fantastic. Cool. All right, folks,
Thanks,
you got the message there. Have a good weekend, Woody. See you later, Ewan. You take care, guys.
Thanks, Sam. You too.
Wasn't that great, everybody? Adam had to drop off, and I've got to drop off as well. It's time to leave the office because it is a scorcher of a day. I think it's the hottest day in Europe so far. So go and have a very good weekend, everybody. We're back next week, as we always are. We have another Founders Focus, this time with Steve Bartell, CEO of GEM. We're going to do that in a US-friendly time zone. So we're going to do that at 10 a.m. Pacific time. That's 6 p.m. British summer time. So very well worth hanging around for. Steve is one of the most acute, sharp, and funny sort of commentators in the world of recruitment. Also, of course, has built a fantastic product that really has changed the game for a lot of recruiters when it comes down to how you do talent engagement, how you get response from candidates. This is, of course, GEM, who, by the way, have also built an ATS as well now, so they're joining in that space. It's going to be wonderful to interview Steve on his founder journey and then figure out what he's learned from being the entrepreneur that he is. That's happening next week on Wednesday. And we're back on Friday, of course. Brainfood Live on air on Friday. We are going to be talking about, and this is a celebration, by the way. I have been seeing some of our friends who've been out of work for a while get new jobs in recent days, and it's been fantastic to see. And so we're going to speak to some of them. We're going to say, okay, you've got a new job as a recruitment leader. What's your 100-day plan look like? We've got a lot of cool people to join us for that. And if you're on the job search or you're looking at new opportunities and what have you, and you wanted to think, okay, what does it look like if I want to land at a sprint? We're going to knock some ideas about on that. All right, folks, that's about it. If you've enjoyed this show, follow the channel to keep updated. And as I mentioned, if you're watching on LinkedIn, follow my personal account and you'll be updated whenever we go live. Okay, thanks for watching, everybody. See you next week.